Hello and welcome to the Red Bar channel. We're being joined today by our friend Carlos to speak about what is happening in the world, not in China for once, but in the world. We're talking about the coronavirus. 2 points before we start our conversation. Point number one, the reason why we've decided to make this video is because we are lucky here in China. We're speaking from Shanghai, as you know. It's important to know that we feel that we are past the peak of the crisis. And so we've seen the three phases. The beginning of the worry, which is happening in Italy, in Iran, in Japan, in Korea. We've seen the measures that have been implemented. We've seen the number of people getting the virus increasing, but we are now seeing the number of people catching the virus decreasing. And so we feel as though we're past the worst of the crisis. And what we wanted to share with you, because this is all about sharing, is what was put in place here locally so that we feel as though we are past the worst of the situation. The second thing is, and that's important too, we are not in Wuhan, we're in Shanghai. A lot of the videos that are posted are videos from Wuhan, which is, Wuhan was the nest, the cradle of the virus, and the situation there was particularly bad. It was particularly gloomy. We're hoping that this is not what the rest of the world will experience, and so hopefully you will be experiencing something more like what we have experienced ourselves.
You are very optimistic. I'm not so optimistic, but I agree. I mean, if you learn the lessons that we have learned, I mean, if you learn from ourselves, from China, from the people that is here, probably you can minimize and begin to understand that what is happening is a real sanitarian crisis. You must take it seriously. It's not a joke and it's not a flu.
Well, the last thing is that because our editors are stuck at home in their hometowns, this video is not going to be edited. This is the real thing. Do you remember, Carlos, when it all started? When did people start getting worried?
Oh yes, I remember that in the beginning was something that was happening far away in Wuhan, in the province of Hubei. 11 million people, and the province 58 million people, and a new disease that was transmitted from wild animals in a specific place, a market, from wild animals to people. But with the danger that if a mutation would happen, could become infectious between humans. I mean, from people to people.
From people to people.
This, I began to be concerned about this because the whole thing started in December. But I began to be really concerned when the mutation happened. This between the 15 and the 22, 23 of January.
It's important that you explain all that because we weren't there. We basically, my wife and I, flew into the virus around the 15th of January, and we weren't really speaking about it, but it was there already.
I mean, after the 20th, when the university was closed, and in 2 or 3 days, I mean, my birthday is the 24th of January, just the same day the Chinese New Year Eve. I mean, and 1 or 2 days before my birthday, maybe the 21st, the 22nd, people are beginning to talk about what? About masks, about wearing masks. Why? Because the mutation has happened, and now this, and the virus is spreading quickly. So
right.
We have to begin to go carefully, and we must be ready because we are on Chinese New Year. 300 million, 400 million people are moving all over China, traveling going back home to meet with the family in the only holiday they have in the whole year.
Right, there are two aspects to it. First of all, from the from the lockdown of Wuhan, 24th, 275 people infected.
Yeah.
10 days later, you've got the figures.
19,000.
19,000 people.
19,000, which means a lot.
Jesus.
And be careful, because in Italy the things have jumped from 40 or 20 to 1,700.
So it is very important to understand that this is a virus that is highly, highly, highly contagious.
Yeah, very contagious. So you cannot think only that this virus is not very little, because the amount of people that potentially could die depends only also in the amount of people that would be infected.
Right, there's a lot of people that said that this virus is actually a little more than just a common flu.
No, it's not. Why? Because it's more infectious. It means if you have it, you must be isolated. If not, your whole family will get it. When you have a flu, I mean, you can be taken care by your wife, or your father, your mother, your family. But with this virus, if you are infected, the whole family will get it. And this is what has been happening.
The first measure that was taken place, that was imposed on people here, was the mask and the washing hands.
Yeah.
Why the mask? It's important that
it's very
people
important
know that.
to know that the mask has an effect from in to out, which means if you have a mask and you are not safe, the virus can come in. But if the person who is infected is using the mask, the virus will not come in. But the problem is that this virus needs time, needs maybe
It's an
2
incubation.
weeks of incubation, and many people don't know if they are infected, which means you don't know if I am infected. But if I wear a mask, if you wear a mask too, I mean, we are protecting each other. I mean, the distance that droplets will fly is between, in Europe they say 1.5 meters, but in China we say 2.5 meters. I mean, is stopped by the mask. I mean, when you are sitting in the subway, the distance is very short, or in the bus, or if you're just walking in the street sometimes, no? So my mask is protecting you.
And my mask is protecting
Exactly,
him.
exactly. I mean, the mask of the patient is protecting the nurse, but the nurse needs to use a mask too.
Right, basically double protection means
Double
that
protection.
I am protecting Carlos. If Carlos wears a mask, he's protecting me.
Exactly.
And this is how that double wall, if you like,
But
limits tremendously
It's basic.
the spread of the virus. And that was measure number 1. Measure number 2 is very important to wash hands on a very, very regular basis.
sanitation, wash hands. I mean, we all have in the pocket of our jacket a little bottle with sanitizing stuff, which means when we touch something, when we go to the elevator and push number 0, that is the one that everybody is pushing, we put a little of sanitizing in the hand, and that's it.
Very good excuse to wear alcohol with you.
Exactly. I mean, if you need to, okay. Let's not talk about this, even if we are talking from a bar.
It really was first of, so 25th of January to about the first week of February, the number of people infected increases exponentially. People are worried.
And we know the very important thing is that this holiday lasts only 1 week, maybe 10 days. But the first measure, one of the important measures that the government is taking in the beginning is to postpone.
Exactly, and that's
extend the holiday.
That's measure number 2.
Number 2. I mean, number 3, sanitizing mask and postpone the coming back from holiday, and suggest the people not to move too much, especially in crowded places with a lot of people, such as, I don't know, weddings.
So that's really, yes. Measure number 2, restaurants that were still open. Remember, it is Chinese New Year, so a lot of the shops are closed, but the restaurants and the bar are still open because these are places of
We have tourism here.
social places. The restaurants and the bars and the clubs and the KTVs shut down, and that's the government imposes those places to shut down.
Yeah.
You stay at home, and everybody did that.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it's not an imposition; it's a suggestion. But the people has enough responsibility to take it seriously, because they see that the problem is serious. They don't have panic. I mean, they are concerned, but they don't have panic. So they self-quarantine. They stay at home if they can, because they are on holiday. So they stay at home, they don't go out.
And it was quite extraordinary. Between the 7th, 5th, 6th, 7th of February up until about 3-4 days ago, a place like Shanghai, 30 million people, was completely empty.
Yeah, completely empty.
People really followed the advice from the authorities.
Yeah, this is before the holiday they happened. I mean, you could go to the center of Shanghai, and you could go to the Bund or to Waitan, to Xintian, the very popular places, Nanjing Road, and they were empty.
It's quite extraordinary.
Everybody was at home, taking care. And when they went out to buy food, because they need it, and we all need, they always wore a mask. And whenever they went to a supermarket, they will put this thermometer,
The
we call it the gun, in your head in the beginning to know your temperature, because one of the early
that is correct. That
things
is one aspect of it
that
as well.
is the temperature. I mean, you must control the temperature. They're doing this constantly. And also they begin to sanitize the public places with the big cannons filled with this sanitizing stuff.
Correct.
Buses, subway, everywhere. You see people sanitizing.
A few days ago, we could see the beginning of life coming back to where we live in Shanghai, but I think apart from Wuhan, that is where the situation is still very, very, very difficult. The number of people getting affected started decreasing, and there was a sudden feel of, after 2 weeks of people really staying at home, and really staying at home, of complete lockdown, not just of Wuhan, but essentially the major cities everywhere. People started moving again, because there appeared a feeling of cautious optimism.
No, cautious. No, I mean, the numbers are the numbers. I mean, the numbers are much better even in the whole of Wuhan and Hubei. I mean, yesterday there were only 3 people infected away from Wuhan, including the province of Hubei. In the whole of China,
it feels here, after all these drastic
it's a miracle.
measures, it feels as though the worst of the crisis, if you like, is behind us.
But
and that is important. This is what we wanted to share. How did we get there?
Because we worry about you. We worry about you. You must go carefully with what is beginning to happen in Europe. We want to share
about you.
Yeah, we are sharing our experience, so you can use us. We want to be used.
We've got 1 minute left. Remember, just to sum up: gloves, masks,
sanitizing,
hygiene, sanitization.
Don't go out.
Limit movement as much as possible.
Especially in crowded places.
Avoid crowded places. Do not panic.
No, not panic. It's not necessary. We have been feeling safe the whole time.
There's one thing that is very important that I think helped China go past the crisis, is the very, very strong sense of collective
responsibility. And forget fake news and social media.
We need to go. Bye.
No, that's good.